Morning, Tony Walker here, and gonna make a little video for you. Tell you about something that happened recently, yesterday in our area. Couple of reasons. Number one, just to give you something to think about, and then also number two, to encourage you to put some comments on the video. Try to get some feedback and discussion going on amongst ourselves. Because it's something that we really do need to think about. Yesterday, I'll give you the short version of the story. Yesterday, I was at home around lunchtime eating lunch. Finished up lunch, went and got in my truck, and went out of our driveway and out the side road, and was sitting there about to pull onto the main road when a few police cars came by, which isn't all that uncommon in our area. We live next to a sort of a main road, a couple miles away from town, and so a lot of times we will hear ambulances or police cars, and open up our phone, the app that tells you crime reports, and see what's going on. And so at first thing that come to my mind was another armed robbery at the dollar store. It seems like that happens maybe a few times a month between a dollar store on the outskirts of town that way and the other one on the other way. It's kind of not even shocked anymore when the dollar store gets robbed. So at first I thought that's what it was. Well, then, after turning down the road and driving, saw in my rear view mirror more police cars coming. And they had to have been going, as fast as they could drive safely, because it was like something out of a movie. Not to make light of the situation, but that's the only way I think to describe it. It was like an action scene from a movie. All these police cars. Eventually, I got up to another intersection where two main roads kind of crossed. And when I did, it was like normal non-police, regular car traffic. No matter what color the light was, everybody was just stopping. You had police cars coming from one direction, from another direction, coming up the main highway. Some 3 different directions, all going toward the elementary school. So at first I wasn't, I knew it had to have been something worse than somebody robbing the dollar store again. And so I opened up the police scanner app where you can listen to the police scanner feed on my phone. And within, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds or so, it was pretty much clear what was going on, that there was a shooting. And then about that same time, my wife, she sent me a text message and said that there was a shooting at the elementary school. And so anyway, I kept up with traffic, and not the police traffic, but regular traffic. Rather than, go somewhere else, I said, just go see what's going on. So I stayed with traffic and made it out there, and eventually it gets to a 2-lane road, and so every now and then you'd see another batch of police cars, and everybody would get out of the way and the police cars would come through. It really was, something that I've never seen that many police cars in my life. And then what really struck me when I knew it was something bad was there, a couple different agencies of different police departments. When police departments, I guess the right word will be out of their jurisdiction, when they started all heading to that same place too, I thought, man, this must be something awful. So anyway, get to the elementary school, park on the side of the road, and I grab my Bible and just walk out into the field, and there's kids crying, some of them laughing, some of them happy, some of them joking around. I guess, just being kids, maybe not really understand what's going on. But then again, you had other kids that were crying and scared and shaking, and there was a few adults, I guess parents, who had got there, wondering if their kids were okay. They were crying and upset, some of them. So it ended up being an opportunity to just walk around and pray with people and talk with people. And then after that, they brought in school buses and put all the kids and teachers on school buses and took them to a nearby church, maybe, I don't know, a mile or two down the road. and put all the kids in the gymnasium and all the parents in the sanctuary, and had a release and sign out thing going on to make sure all the kids were accounted for. And had the opportunity to pray with some more people there. Although things at the church were much calmer, because I think probably at that point, the few people that were hurt, the families probably knew it by then, and so the main thing was just parents in the sanctuary getting impatient, wanting to just hug their kid and go home with their kid. So everything was much calmer at that point. So what happened was, the way I understand it, there was a 14-year-old boy who shot and killed his father about 2 or 3 miles from the school. Why he went to the school, I don't know. They still haven't said anything about that yet. Just a few speculation things on Facebook, but nothing concrete from the police department anyway. So he shoots and kills his dad. He drives to the school, 14 years old, so I'm guessing, stealing his dad's truck. Kills his dad, drives to the school, and either drove up to the playground or crashed into the playground fence. I'm not exactly sure which. He got to the playground, but I don't know if he drove through the fence or into the fence or up to the fence. But he got to the fence. There's one website saying that he was screaming some things about hating his life and hating my life. And then starts, to my understanding, starts shooting, towards the playground or into the playground. One teacher was injured. She was treated and released yesterday. Another child was shot in the foot, which I heard that on the police scanner when they were, when the paramedics were, talking on the police scanner. And then there was one child who was, to my understanding, shot in the leg and hit in a, I don't know if you, I think an artery vessel, whatever you call it, where the child lost a lot of blood. I think they tried to do surgery yesterday, and he was losing too much blood, and they stopped the surgery. I don't know that to be fact, but that's what I heard. So, but anyway, I do know that, at least as far as last update goes, the 6-year-old child is still in critical condition in a nearby hospital. The town that's bigger than our town, little town of Anderson, he's in the super duper hospital about 30 minutes away. But the thing I want to just maybe mention, and just to give you something to think about, and hopefully have some people comment on it, it's just the simple truth that, like James said, some people say, we're going to go to town, we're going to buy this, buy that. I can't remember exactly how the book of James puts it. But that's not a smart way to talk. We should say, if the Lord wills, we'll do this or that. Lord willing, I'll make it home tonight. Lord willing, I'll eat dinner with my family. Lord willing, I'm going to go to the mall tonight and try to find some more pants because mine are getting too small. My belly's getting too big. Lord willing, I'm going to finish this video and not die. Life can be so fragile, and things can happen so quickly that what we think is going to begin as just a normal day could just turn into complete chaos. And none of us can promise or be promised that won't be us sometime in our life, and we also can't be promised that won't be us before today is over. Now, specifically speaking, what I want to ask you to think about, and the reason I'm going to ask you to think about it is because I've been thinking about it myself for several years, is what would we do, what would I do, what would you do if we were in a situation where, to speak in layman's terms, something bad is about to go down, or something bad is in the process of going down. Now, if if you don't have a weapon or carry a weapon, then obviously the only thing you can do is run, hide, whatever. But my question is for those who have chosen to carry a weapon. Or maybe if you don't carry a weapon, maybe you've given this thought and you decided not to. That's also a legitimate decision, and I want to hear what you have to say about that. Now, before we proceed any further, I will say that sometimes we go through things in life that affect our decisions. When I was 21, obviously it was right at my birthday. I was 20 or 21, and I turned 21 after the class. I can't remember, but anyway, weapons class. And I remember in that weapons class, there were people in that class who I think sincerely wanted to, if they were ever in the opportunity, to defend their life and defend the lives of others. It was also clear there were people in that class who just wanted a reason to shoot somebody if they stepped on their yard. And it was evident because of in all honesty, some of the stupid questions they were asking. One question was like, if I see somebody looking over into my car, can I shoot them? The normal response should be, why would you want to shoot somebody if all they're doing is looking into your car? So anyway, I'm not talking about people with that mindset. I'm talking about people who have specifically not just given it, 10 minutes thought after somebody gets shot. I mean, this is something you've thought about. You have thought, you have read, you have discussed, you've looked at both sides, or however many sides there are, and you've given this serious thought. Because as I said, this is something that still to this day, I try to just think, what would I do if I was in that situation? Now, if you've read my website or looked at my testimony, my mother was murdered when I was 10 years old. Excuse me. And that happened by my stepfather, the man she was married to at the time. You can read that if you'd like on my website, preachertony.com. Click on testimony, I believe it is, and then you'll see a link, a couple different links. It's in a couple of different formats, an audio and the website, and then there's also a magazine article about it that I'll mention in a minute. And so I have seen someone dead, and not just someone that I love, my mother. And so that gives you a new perspective on, just for example, what a little piece of lead can do. It can kill someone. It can, in a split second, kill someone. It can, in a split second, harm someone with such injury that they never recover, or they die before they hit the ground. And so it's not something to take lightly. Defending yourself or choosing to defend other people, or let's say this. Maybe one decision is to defend you and your family, but you're not quite sure yet what you would do when it comes to defending other people. And I've heard people try to think through some of those things. I've also heard the mindset that get $1 million life insurance policy, and if I die, my family will be taken care of, and I'll be in heaven. I've heard that side of it. But it's one thing to think about it. It's another thing to think about it, in my situation, having seen someone you love get shot and killed. These people yesterday at the situation, that teacher, that I think the way it goes, she was on the playground with the kids, and she's trying to get them maybe inside the school or inside a room in the school, and she gets hurt in the process. I don't know her. I don't know anything about her. Don't know anybody who knows her. But this is probably something that she's gonna think through in a more real manner than probably up to this point. So I guess the main thing I'm saying is the simple fact that, there's the possibility that you go through life and you are never the victim of a violent crime, and someone you love is never the victim of a violent crime. There is also the chance that, like me, you may be in the same house when someone gets shot dead and killed, and you run through the house and you see that person you love laying there, and you can still remember it, 22 years later. And it's not something if you say, yeah, I know what I'd do in that situation, it's not something to take lightly. But it is something we need to think about before we're ever in that situation, because if a situation like that ever comes, you do not have time to open up your Bible and think, okay, now what should I do? What is right or wrong in this situation? It's going to have to be a split-second decision that you'll have to live with for the rest of your life. So, I know it's kind of rambling, but, really the main thing, have you thought about what you would do in that situation? Either you're in a restaurant, someone comes in and starts shooting. Do you shoot back? Do you get your family and go out through the back door, through the kitchen? Run through the kitchen, because there's going to be a back door to get out for the kitchen workers to get out. Are you just going to get out and protect your family? Are you going to stay in that restaurant with your family at risk and try to protect other families? Are you going to charge and try to, stop the threat? Are you going to retreat and say, if the threat comes to me, I'll try to stop it? These are serious things that you may never face. But then again, March 22nd, 94, I thought was going to be any other normal day, and my life changed forever. September 28th, there's a teacher and 2 children who physically being harmed. Their lives are changed, as well as a whole lot of other people at that school whose lives are changed emotionally forever. So what would you do? What would you do if you're at home and someone breaks in? What would you do if you're in a restaurant and somebody storms in? What are you going to do if you're in a mall and someone starts stabbing people or shooting people? What are you going to do if you're in a sporting event or a high school gymnasium and just, chaos breaks loose? So I'm saying, generically, what would you do? My next question is specifically, would you, and this is where I hope to see some comments. And normally what I do on the comments is I have them filtered where I have to approve them first, because spam and, every now and then a crazy comment. But I think what I'll do for this video is just leave the comments open as of being uploaded. That way the comments, hopefully some comments will come in, but hopefully some comments will come in, and maybe you can comment on each other's comments. But if I do the filter system, then, nobody will see what's the comments until I approve them, and so there can't be much back and forth discussion. So the comments will be unfiltered as of right now. Feel free to chime in, weigh in. You can comment back and forth with me. You can comment back and forth with other people. But my question is, would you take the life of another human being? Now, I don't want to comment. Sure enough, I would. I'd do it in a split second. If that's your comment, if that's the way you feel, fine. But tell me why. Why would you take the life of another person for several things? To protect yourself, or to protect your loved ones, and then the third category would be to protect strangers. Would you protect your life if you were alone? Would you protect your life and the life of your family if you're together? And would you protect the life of someone you don't know? Possibly at the risk of putting you or your family's life in danger. Now, a couple of things to think about. I'm going to ramble for a few more minutes. The the Christian perspective. Um, I've heard, I've read a lot on this. This started, a few years ago. Me started trying to think through these things. Surprisingly, not really in response to my mother being killed, because that was when I was 10. What really made me start thinking about it at first was someone who was a member of our church was shot and killed at a restaurant about the same time I turned 21 years old. And so I turned 21, got a few items and submitted a few government papers, and went about my business. But still, even at that point, didn't really give it much thought. The I don't know if this is the right word, but the ethical, moral side of things. When I was 21, the only decision was, what caliber. There needs to be more decisions, more thought go into this decision than what caliber and what magazine capacity, if you even get to that point. There needs to be some thought on, for example, one response, one legitimate response, or I say legitimate, one person who's thinking in their right mind, their response was, a Christian says, if they kill me, I'm going to heaven. If they kill my family's saved. They're going to heaven. If they kill me and don't kill my family, I've got a good insurance policy. They'll be taken care of. When someone says, well, don't you need to be here to provide for your family? Their response was, that's what I have life insurance for. And so every point that you give that person, they've got another point back. Right or wrong, the reason they can reply back so quickly is because they've thought about these things. Another response would be, I would protect my family, but if it come down to me and my family running out the back door and making it home safe, or me telling my family to run out the back door while I stay in here and try to protect everybody else, that's another angle to look at it. Would you do that? Would you protect strangers at the risk of your children not having a daddy when they go to bed that night? Something to think about. The other discussion would be someone I've talked to about, someone I had this discussion with one time. Would, you're going down the street, you see someone getting hurt, would you interject yourself into that situation? One response would be, you don't know what's fully going on in that situation. For example, what was told to me by one person, you're walking on the road, you see some big athletic guy chasing a little old lady with a pocketbook. Your first thought is he's trying to steal that lady's pocketbook, or maybe even worse than that. And so you start chasing after him, you possibly shoot him, you possibly run him over and try to stop him that way. What if you find out that what was really going on is little old grandma was selling drugs out of that little pocketbook, and the big athletic guy was actually an undercover police officer? What if you pulled out your gun and shot that man thinking you were saving grandma when actually you were killing a policeman? Something to think about. If it is a situation you don't know about, which ones would you interject yourself in? Because you don't know if it's an undercover policeman trying to arrest grandma, or you don't know if it's some bad guy trying to hurt grandma. And then the other discussion, something that has been brought up here. What would you do if you're in a church and someone comes in and starts shooting? What would you do if you were in a church and someone comes in and starts shooting? Maybe about 30 minutes from where we live, maybe a little more than that, less than an hour. There was a nearby church where a man came into the church on a Sunday morning with a shotgun. And the way the story goes, if it wasn't elaborated or exaggerated, the pastor jumps from the pulpit area and grabs the guy's shotgun and wrestles him to the ground. and then the police show up. As crazy as that sounds, what's the guarantee that that won't ever happen here? Would I take the life of a shooter to protect, let's say, the teen group that I'm the youth director at? Would I shoot somebody who comes in the front door of our church? Let's say that I'm coming out of my office and church is about to start, and I see someone coming in the front doors. What would I do in that situation? What could I do in that situation? What would be the right or wrong thing to do? Well, some people say, the majority of people are going to say the right thing to do is to stop that guy, whether that means giving your life or whether that means taking his life. Your job is to protect everybody else. However, some people would say, bring this up. What would Jesus do? And then the response might be, some people would say, how could an innocent person not do anything in the face of violence? Jesus would have stopped it. But then you think about what Jesus did on the cross, and he did not stop violence, though he was an innocent person. Now, again, I know Jesus was doing something completely different. He was dying for our sins on the cross. He was purchasing our salvation and our redemption, which is, I say this, whatever the right word is, he was doing something a little bit more important than what we would be doing. He was dying for the sin of the world. But then again, there are people who use that as an example, though they know they're not giving their life for someone's salvation. They still take the response of Jesus Christ towards violence as a reason to be, a pacifist, whether it's in war or in private violence or, small-scale violence. And when you ask that person, why would you not try to stop an innocent person from being harmed? And their response, and they'll point to a Bible verse and say, because Jesus didn't. So, these are things that we need to think through and discuss amongst ourselves. Now, what do I think? Be honest with you, the reason I'm doing this video is because I'm not sure. Now, if a split-second decision was required, I think I know what I would do, and I would live with the results later, whatever that might be. And I'm going to guess that most of you probably feel the same way. Now, there may be some of you who would say, I'll shoot them, I'll take out the bad guys, and I'll eat a cheeseburger and go to sleep that night and not feel bad about it. And you may find out differently after you do that. I think of the story of one person who, somebody in our church knows the guy. I don't know if he was defending himself or defending his family, but in self-defense, that's the way it was legally or lawfully ruled, whatever. It was self-defense. And it was said about that man that he never was the same after that. It was a preacher who defended his life or someone else's life. And mentally, it changed him for the rest of his life. I guess he could handle it. He dealt with it. But in another way, he couldn't handle it. And that may be, some of you, some of us, maybe myself, maybe I think I could handle it. And then, there's some people who say, I'd rather just get shot and killed than have to live with the conscience of taking another person's life. Because, as a Christian, we know that when a lost person dies, they go to hell. And would I want on my conscience the last action or event that happened before that lost person went to hell was because I pulled a trigger? But then again, the other kickback to that would be, well, you're not the one who sent him to hell. He sent himself to hell by choosing what he did to do, choosing to do what he did, which I also understand that side of it. So again, I'm not saying you've got to be on this side, or I'm not saying you've got to be on that side. one beautiful thing about I guess the way Baptists put it, the liberty of conscience, is you can decide what you want to about that, and I'm not to judge you either way. The saying is in return, if I choose to be a complete self-defense guru or a complete pacifist, that should not hinder someone's fellowship with me or prayers for me or love for me. So I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong, but I am saying that it is something that we should think about, because we never know when we'll be in that situation. And if we ever do find ourselves in that situation, it'll be too late to think about it then. We will need to either have already completely decided in our mind what we would do, or at least start laying a foundation groundwork so that there's some sort of comfort, I guess, to fall back on when we face the aftermath, to say, yeah, I did the right thing. Whether that right thing is stepping back and say, you know what, let the police do it, or the right thing would be risking your life to protect the life of someone else. And whichever you decide, hopefully you'll put some comments in there. Feel free to chime in on the comments. Keep it civil. No name calling, no calling each other idiots or anything like that because someone has a different viewpoint. But I would like to know what you think. I would like to know, just in general what you think about these matters. If you have been in a specific situation, I'd like to hear that. If there's certain passages in the Bible that help shed light on this, I'd love to hear it. Some of the ones you found. I'm trying to speak generically because I want to hear, what both sides have to say, or three sides or four sides. I want to hear everybody's viewpoint without, just stating this is mine and coming across like this is what you need to do. But as I said, it's something that I have thought about, but I haven't stopped thinking about it. I'm still thinking, if that day ever happens where someone breaks into our house, and if it's me or them, what would I choose? If my family is gone to Chick-fil-A to play on the playground and I'm at home watching TV or studying or sleeping or whatever, and it's just me, would I let that person take my life so I would not have to live with the burden of taking another life on me? Or would I, just me and them in the living room, would I take their life to save my life? Or would I lose my life and give it up freely, sacrificially? It's something to think about. It really is. I would like to hear the verses that you come up with. Back in our Sunday school class that I teach, so a few years ago, we went through a study on this, which I also put on the website. I think that was a radio broadcast, so that would have been several years ago. Maybe about four or five lessons on self-defense. There is a magazine article that a self-defense guy wrote about me. My story on what's the name of that magazine? Be honest, the name's slipping my mind now. The name of the magazine, the foundation or the group is the United States Concealed Carry Association, USCCA, and they have a monthly magazine that goes out across the nation to people who are members. And the guy, there was some emails and interviews back and forth, and so I've given my life story on the national radio broadcast that's kind of join up member with that magazine. And after the radio broadcast, the author put a magazine article about me and what happened to my mother. And then also there was a book written by a man named Mark Walters, named Lessons from Unarmed America. His first book was called Lessons from Armed America, and this one was the follow-up sequel was called Lessons from Unarmed America. And there's a chapter in that book, I think maybe chapter 9, Let's see. Here we go. Lessons from Unarmed America. And page 93. Yeah, there's a chapter in here. Chapter 11, We Can Triumph Over Evil by Mark Walters. Let's see. Put that in there. The Incredible Life Journey of Mr. Tony Walker. And right here is a quote, something from me. Evil people, not inanimate objects, commit evil deeds. Guns in the right hands, the hands of law-abiding people, do good things. And so, that'll give you a little bit of idea. And then there's a follow-up chapter in chapter 12 on domestic violence that while it will be ludicrous to suggest that Tony Walker wasn't a victim of violence, he lost his mother and who knows how much of his childhood to a horrific act of violence. His mother was the one who was murdered in this story, so I'm going to focus on her. And so Rob Pincus, he talks about the what happened from a different viewpoint. So that's going to give you an idea which side of the balance my scales are my scales are going to tip. But I still have in the back of my mind, would I protect my family? I think the answer is yes. Would I protect my family if it meant sending, let's just say I was happened to be on a school playground or a park, neighborhood park, and somebody starts shooting? Would I protect myself in that situation? Or would I protect, little children in that situation? Obviously, I think the answer is yes. But how would you deal with the aftermath, knowing that, for example, in the here's lessons from Honor. In the first book that he wrote, there's a story in there of a father who, and I'll be honest with you, I think it's actually the same chapter as mine. It says, no other true crime tale of terror I've ever written or read about to date has saddened me more than Because I Needed the Money, as told to me by Mr. Jorick Landry, which appeared in our first book, Lessons from Armed America. And then he goes on down, and then he talks about that story, and then he says, then he talks about my story, and he says, this one comes close. And he talks about what happened with my mother. And in that story, what happened is a man chose to protect him and his family. And in doing so, he also shot and killed his own 10-year-old son. How you can tell I'm at a loss for words. I don't even know how to express that. I can't remember. I think they were in the parking lot at Disney World, and a man comes up banging on the door. Here, I'll pause it. Or maybe you can pause it if you want to take a quick look at that page and read over it. But if I remember right from all the details in the first book, they got there super early to Disney World. The gate's not open, so they park in the parking lot, and they doze off for a little bit. Guy comes up banging on the window, I think, and tries to rob them. I think the guy actually opens the door and reaches in for the kids or something. And when he does, a bullet ricochets off the frame of the car and I think goes into the stomach or the side of, I think he's 10 years old. Stray bullet from his own gun also killed his 10-year-old son. But then he had to live with the fact that, while his own bullet took the life of his son, that bullet also possibly saved his other children's life and the life of his wife and himself. But my question would be, how does that guy sleep at night? And in the way I understand the story, I believe that family is a Christian family, because I think that's how he kind of ties his story leading into my story. Talks about faith in the Lord and trusting Him in times like that. But that guy had made a choice to carry a pistol, and he probably never thought that he would have to use it, and he probably also never thought that if he ever did have to use it, one of the consequences would be one of his own family members also dying as well. I mean, how do you even think these things out in your mind? I guess the truth of the matter is you don't know all the consequences and details and things that could happen. But to the best of your ability, you think through them and you try to prepare yourself. In the lawful, legal ways, of course, but then also emotionally and mentally and ethically and biblically and all those things as well. So, again, this has already gone 40 minutes. Didn't intend for it to go that long. Again, just think about these things. Think about them. Realize you may be in that situation one day. If you never are, just thank the grace of God that you're not. If you are, could it be that the grace of God put you there to protect someone else? I don't know. I don't know the answer to those questions. But I would like to hear if you do. So if you will, I'd like to get a few comments on this. Not for any who's right or who's wrong. No name calling. Not to, I was going to say something about that book. Not anything about the author or the authors or who wrote the foreword or the introduction. Not Democrat and Republican things, not gun control matters, not, semi-automatic rifles versus revolvers and blah, 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 blah. Just generally speaking, have you thought about these things? Have you thought about what you would do? And if the answer was, I'm going to stand back and whatever happens, happens, if that's the way you think, I'd like to know why you think that way. If your answer is, I'm going to do what it takes to protect myself and get out of that situation, I'd like to hear why. If your answer is, I would do what it takes to protect me and my family and get out of that situation, I would like to hear why. And in doing so, neglecting those innocent people and possibly saving their lives. If you say, I'm going to protect my family, but when it comes to everybody else's family, that's up to them. I want to hear what your justification is for that. If your answer is, I'm going to protect my family, and I'm going to do unto others as I would like for them to do unto me, and I'm going to protect other people's family. I was talking to someone one time, my mother-in-law, about this, and I was saying, would you get involved in, a situation you didn't know the person? And her answer to me was, my wife Rachel. If Rachel was walking down the road and somebody was trying to hurt her, would you want someone to protect Rachel even though she was a stranger? Well, obviously my answer is yes. And, the golden rule, do unto others, you had them doing to you, was part of that discussion, or part of the thinking there. So again, I'm not saying there's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's something to think about, and I'd like to hear what you think about it. Check out the other videos. Usually the videos aren't this kind of somber. Usually they're a little bit more lighthearted or review videos or whatever. But obviously this one's a little different, primarily just due to thinking about the events of yesterday with the school shooting. Check out the website, preachertony.com. Check out the Facebook. Check out the Twitter. Obviously you're here checking out the YouTube. If you go to my website, preachertony.com, and go to the bottom of the page, you can see all the various ways that you can get in touch with me. And check out the Bible studies, check out the sermons. If you go to the website and click on the testimony link, you'll see my testimony, a audio version of my testimony that I gave as a radio broadcast, a recording of my testimony with another podcast show episode, as well as a link to the radio interview with the guy who wrote this book for Armed American Radio. And then, as well as, I believe on that same page, there is a link to the magazine article, the U.S. Concealed Carry Association, with the story about me and my mother. And that article is called Good from Evil. Good from Evil. So take care, and we'll hope to hear from you soon in the comment section below. Bye-bye.